Well, it's great to be with you today. March 25th is a day that we normally celebrate the Annunciation of the Mother of God. It's also a day of profound significance, a day in which John Paul II consecrated the world, fulfilling the Fatima prophecy and request of the Virgin Mary in Fatima to the Immaculate Heart. It's the same day that the Virgin appeared publicly to people in 1984 in a church-approved apparition in a place called Betania, Venezuela. And I was just speaking with the vice postulator about the cause, and he's very encouraged about where it's all heading. I was, I have a friend who I credit his vision, his generosity, his heart, his love for Our Lady to bringing about a documentary called Marian Apparitions of the 20th Century. And I was first exposed to Betania when I went there to include a very small portion of that. Coming back after my first visit to this place, I was blown away by the gifts that this mystic had. She was a female version of Padre Pio, gifts of prophecy and bilocation and levitation, the ability to read souls, the ability to heal. Just it goes on, right? When I told Mr. Ott about that, he accompanied me on a subsequent trip, and it's great to have him here with me today. My friend Bob Ott joins me today. Bob, good afternoon.
Hey, thank you for having me, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, you and I could talk 2 hours about these encounters and about how God, brought us together to work on a project like we did. Fill everyone in on your encounters, because you experienced everything from, let's say, bilocation to this phenomena that I don't talk a whole lot about, this phenomena of the rose that seemed to come forth from her body. But what was your encounter? What was your thoughts? I know initially you were skeptical, but man, you had a radical turnabout.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that really kind of caught my attention. To start with, I don't know if you remember this, Drew, but when she Maria first showed herself coming through the screen door, I remember her eyes were so penetrating. I thought, oh my gosh. And then she spoke to each of us. I don't know if you recall that, but she spoke one line to each. There was 3 of us there. And it had to do with our spirituality, and I was just stunned by her knowledge of what she said to me and the other 2 people. But let me go into the story about what really shocked me the most. So I'll go into detail about this. It happened on actually the second day we were there. We were there 4 days. By the way, this happened 35 years ago. So the second day we were there, it was about 5 o'clock in the evening at night. The sun had just kind of gone down. It was just starting to get a little bit dark. And another gentleman, Stan, and I were standing about 15 feet away from Maria, who at the time was surrounded, I believe, by about 6 or 8 of her family members. And all of a sudden I hear Maria making sounds like she's in pain. So Stan and I went over to see what was happening. So Maria was bent over, holding onto her chest with both hands. Suddenly she stands straight up and pulls out a stem of a rose and proceeds to give us a rose petal and says we are to pray for those for healing with this rose petal. Well, needless to say, I was a little bit doubting the reality of this event at the moment, because it was just too hard to believe. Especially because, even they said it grew from her chest, which, I mean, I couldn't see everything, but that's what it seemed to be, what happened. So at that time, I was quite skeptical. I actually wanted to, go back to the States, but couldn't get it on airlines. But then there were many other events that happened, actually, and after that. But the main one that really caught my attention is about a week later, a week after we got back from the States, we had planned to go, I planned to fly to Philadelphia from Chicago. We were going to view the video footage and kind of decide whether or not we were going to go with Maria on this video documentary. So this is what happened that morning. The morning I'm flying out to go look at this videotape footage, I have this most incredible dream. All I can say, it was the most vivid dream I ever recall having. And I was kneeling in the back of a church all by myself, and it was fairly dark. There were no lights in the church. And as I was kneeling, I see a woman slowly walking up the main aisle. And I immediately knew it was Maria. And she walks up and comes up right to me and places Holy Communion on my tongue. And then she walks around the back of me and lays both her hands on my head. And immediately I feel this incredible feeling, I can't even describe it, of peace that went right through my body from the head to toe. And that was an experience that then I woke up. I woke up and I said, what was that? Well, so then we go to fly to Philadelphia. We're looking at the footage, and there's a number of other things that happened. But that evening, Drew tells me that Maria she bilocates. And I said, really? I had no idea. She says, oh, but when she does bilocate, she brings Holy Communion to people. Well, I don't know what to make of this whole thing, but I'll just tell you this. It convinced me completely. I had no reservations about Maria after that experience.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. The rose phenomena, too. There's actually there's video footage from a medical doctor of that phenomenon. My own father had experienced that. And you and I both have been given rose petals that to this day are just like they were 20 or 30 years ago. It's pretty
35 years ago it happened, Drew, and they're just as fresh today. It was just amazing.
It's amazing. We've only scratched the surface. I've got to leave it right there, Bob. I'm sorry. I'd love to talk more, and we'll do that in the future, maybe on the anniversary of her death. But this March 25th is a big day. You know that, right? For all these apparitions that have occurred around the world. This one was church approved.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I would just say this. I'd like to leave this because this is really important. Yeah. The message of Maria Esperanza. This is their most important message she was telling, and it's so important to our world today. Yeah. She said, this is, quote, families need to forgive each other and start imitating the Holy Family. Yeah. So I just want to leave that with you. This her special feast day of the.
Yeah, she was a model of a family and motherhood, that's for sure.
She was.
Hey, Bob, thank you. I got to leave it right there. I hope you'll stay with me when I return. We're going to take a look at some weird celestial events unfolding in the country.